Not sure who's in charge of the Guardians' champagne inventory, but whoever it is, tell them to go ahead and order a few more cases.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Guardians. Now until September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's Locked On Guardians, celebrating the good times. The Guardians are celebrating clinching a playoff win. We'll talk about why it matters they're celebrating that and why they should be celebrating that. Is the Magic back at Progressive Field? We'll talk about Joey Cantillo's arrival as a big game pitcher and his spot in the playoffs. The importance of winning at the minor league level. Might get into some playoff roster talk as well, and some stuff in the minors that went on Thursday night for the Guardians. And as you know, I'm Justin Latta, your host for today's show. Jeff is off. He covered for me on Tuesday while I was at Lake County for one of the games, so he's getting a well-deserved night off. I'm sure at home he's popping some bubbly on his own. Jeff doesn't do that, but I'm sure he's cracking a glass of eggnog. So I am Justin Latta. I am your host for today's show. I have been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007 at places like Guardians Baseball Insider. So many random sports blogs. I can't name them all, just like Jeff, where I was nobody's favorite writer at any of them. And I'm currently freelancing at the News Herald and Morning Journal. Still got a few columns to go this season on the minor league system there. But we'll be with you all the way here on Locked On Guardians into the playoffs, because the Guardians, they are going to the playoffs. They are playing October baseball. Never gets better than that. And I know let's start this off. I know a lot of people were saying after the Guardians won this game, first of all, another great comeback win. This is a team that hasn't had a walk-off since July 2nd, and they've had 42 comeback wins this season, but none since no walk-offs since July 2nd. They've had 2 in the last 2 days, and that's probably, hopefully some sort of blueprint for the postseason. The way things have gone is if you get to the bullpen with a tie game, chances are the Guardians are going to be in a good position. But I did see some people saying, why are they celebrating making the playoffs? They're going to win the division. They should be worried about that. They shouldn't be worried about just clinching a playoff spot. And I just disagree with that, because you got to celebrate your wins when you can. I mean, come on, coming into the season, show of hands, how many people thought the Guardians were going to go to the postseason? I predicted 85 wins. I predicted that would win the division, and I don't think it will. Maybe it will. The Twins are in bad shape right now, so maybe they won't win 85 games. The Royals are at 82. I think they'll win 3 more, and that would tie the Guardians if they didn't get past that. So it's going to take more than 85 to win the division. The Guardians and surpass my expectations. And the reason they should be celebrating is they have a brand new manager who's never managed a game in his life. Right? Shane Bieber made 2 starts. Trevor Stephan, who was your setup man last year, who was basically your most reliable reliever outside of Sam Hentges, who was hurt, gone for the year, right? Out. Sam Hentges barely pitched this season. The guy I just said was maybe the second most important reliever in that bullpen last year. Logan Allen and Tristan McKenzie are back in AAA trying to figure things out. Ben Lively didn't even start the year in the rotation. He was on the injured list with an illness. You've just had injury after injury this year. Stephen Kwan, second half, has been plummeting. He's on the IL right now. They've worked their bullpen to the bone, and they are still the best bullpen in baseball. Gavin Williams, didn't mention that. Gavin Williams didn't even pitch any part of the first half for the most part, and is still kind of struggling to find his form. And yet this team is still going to the playoffs. In a couple of days, they're going to clinch the division. That alone is enough of a reason to celebrate clinching a playoff spot for what they've been through. And I know it was an organizational choice to hire somebody who had never clinched, never managed a game in their life, right? That's an organizational choice. That is what it is. They live and die with that decision. But I would argue it's worth celebrating that, because that decision seems to have been one worth celebrating. They're going to the playoffs. They're going to win the division. Almost a brand new coaching staff outside of Sandy Alomar, Carl Willis, Chris Valaika. almost a whole new coaching staff, a new bullpen coach, by the way, who's a rising star in the business. This bullpen's great. A bunch of new coaches that were part of the system, that knew vote, that knew other guys. They deserve to celebrate this. And I think it's important too. Baseball is a long season, right? These guys get to Arizona, some of them at the end of January, right after Guards Fest. A lot of them were already down there. Some of them were down there before Guards Fest and came back and went back right after that. And then you got spring training, February and March. And you go all the way from April to September. That's a long year if you think some of these guys are out in Goodyear in January all the way to, and they're playing baseball all the way in September. That is 8 months of baseball. We'll call it 8 months. And you got October coming. It's okay to celebrate these wins. And it's okay as a fan to celebrate these wins too. Because I know there's a lot of people out there, and I've said this before, with the championship or bust mentality. And that's fine if that's how you want to see it. I think fans are allowed to be fans however they want to be fans. That's the beauty of this whole thing. You can feel however you want to feel. But as someone who is a big baseball fan, has been watching baseball my entire life, covers baseball, I think it's worth celebrating these occasions because it is a long season. And as players, as fans, baseball to me is about the journey, because it's 8 months, it's 7 months, whatever you want to call it, of watching baseball, rooting for your team. And some of those months can be horrid. I mean, look where the White Sox are. I know it's not either or, right? It's okay to want to have a championship, but look what the White Sox fans are going through right now. Not a whole lot of reasons to tune in over there. For Guardians fans, you got a reason to tune into that team every night. Even when things were going bad at the end of the All-Star break and in the month of August, you still had a reason to tune in because this team was in first place, and they're back in first place, and they're back in the playoffs. Again, this is what 2013, 2016, 17, 18. We'll count 20, 22, 24. That is seven playoff appearances since 2013. And I know everyone says, well, they got to win a championship, and I agree. At some point, they got to break the drought. They got to do it. But that doesn't mean you can't celebrate the journey along the way, and you should, because it is a long season. Take the chance to enjoy it while you can. There's no guarantees once you get into the playoffs. Anything can happen. It's a wide open field this year, and no team is perfect. The Guardians certainly aren't perfect. But if you have a chance to celebrate watching your team win every night for 6 months, or 89 times over the course of 6 months. This team has won 89 games over the course of 6 months this year. They deserve to celebrate the culmination of their hard work, because not a lot of people thought they were going to get here. I thought 85 wins would win this division. They're better than that. And it took more than 85 wins to win this division. It's not like they could sleepwalk. This isn't 2018 where they sleptwalked to the division title. So I think it's worth celebrating. Think about all the games you watch with your friends, your family. It's a long season for everybody, for the players and for fans. So when you get the chance to celebrate and take stock in enjoying any big accomplishment, I think it's worth doing. So anybody who says they shouldn't be celebrating this because they clinched a playoff spot and they should be winning the division and focus on the World Series, that's all great. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy it along the way. Baseball really is about the journey. It's a long season, and it's one of those things I think you want to appreciate along the way. And this was a fun game, right? This was an interesting game. Joey Cantillo was awesome this entire game. The third time through the order, things did start to get to him a little bit, and that's as expected. We'll get into that. But Guardians offense has been waiting until late to score runs recently, and at this point, you'll take any runs you can get for the Guardians, but he kept them in the game when they weren't scoring. They got a leadoff home or first inning home run from Kyle Manzardo. That was huge. We'll talk about the decision to hit him second, which I like, I'll just say. And then, he gave up 2 runs in the 5th inning before he came out, and one was unearned. But he was in this game the whole way. He pitched great. He showed why he was a top 10 prospect for Jeff and I. He showed why he was a big part of that Mike Clevenger trade. Now you've got Josh Naylor. The last 2 days, right? The last 2 days, you've got Josh Naylor, who basically won you a game on Wednesday. Joey Cantillo, who I think has finally arrived as a pitching prospect at the major league level on Thursday. That trade is still bearing fruit for the Guardians. I don't even know if Mike Cleveland, I don't think Mike Cleveland is on the active roster in Chicago. He pitched for them at some point this year. He's somewhere out there. Meanwhile, Joey Cantillo looks like he's taking a step forward. Josh Naylor has his first 30 home run, 100 RBI season. Big part of the Guardians win the other night. Going to be a big part of the postseason. Celebrate that. Celebrate all these things, right? Who would have thought the Guardians would be here, honestly? And if you look up and down the roster, there's a lot of reasons you could say they wouldn't be, but they're here. And that was a good game. Another walk-off win against the Twins, you know, between their fan base and their players who talked about, you know, not doing slumps and how the Guardians are going to have their downfall at some point. They're not the Yankees. Yeah, they're not the Yankees, but neither are the Twins. The Twins might not make the playoffs at this point. The Guardians just put them down, and now they're in a fight because the wild card is tied. Honestly, if I'm the Guardians, I'm rooting for the Twins because that's who you might see. I mean, they'd have to win a first-round playoff series in the wild card, but there's potential for you to see them in the playoffs. So I don't know. The Guardians end up 10-3 against the Twins this year. That's their best record against any team in the majors this year for a team that had a lot to say between the team and their fans. The Twins are fighting for their playoff lives, and the Guardians, they are popping champagne. On Thursday, they got 3 more wins so they can pop a little more champagne. We'll touch on that. We'll touch on Joey Cantillo, Kyle Manzardo, stuff in the minors, playoff roster, playoff schedule, all good stuff coming up on a Friday edition of Locked On Guardians. Prime for this one, guys. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships, division championships, like the Guardians, coming up. Also, it keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak manual Class A performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into power, speed, style, eBay Motors has you covered. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge division clinching wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. The Guardians are going to the playoffs. Shohei Ohtani has video game numbers. The wild card races are wilder than ever on both sides. The Brewers have clinched a division title. If all of those storylines sound fun to you, you should check out Locked On MLB after you're done making Locked On Guardians your first listen this morning, and thank you for that. Our pal Sully has you covered for all of those fun headlines across Major League Baseball over at Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. And Joey Cantillo is proving that come October, at some point in October, any given day, he should be on the roster. I think Joey Cantillo, the last 3 starts, I know, again, someone's going to say it's against the White Sox, and then went out last time and pitched pretty well. And then he shut down the Twins when they absolutely needed it, right? This is a game every game at this point mattered for Cleveland to win these games and just to finish things off. Joey Cantillo's last 3 starts have been nothing short of masterful, especially when you compare them to where he was when he came up. And I know he was frustrated the first several times. Just, again, you faced the Phillies, you faced the Orioles, you faced the Twins the first time, which he was okay. It was definitely his best start of his career, but it wasn't great. You faced the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. You got the Royals out of the bullpen. Maybe something clicked there. I don't know. We talked about that. But Joey Cantillo, the last 3 outings, 2 earned runs, his last 3 outings. That is spanning over 15 innings. 12, 16 and a third innings with 22 strikeouts and just 4 walks. And that's the big number, the 4 walks over his last 3 starts. This is a guy in AAA who was walking 2, 3, 4 guys in 2, 3, 4 innings. He's got 4 walks his last 3 starts and 22 strikeouts. Joey Cantillo, I think, has, I'm not going to say, I guess has he arrived? Yes, he's arrived. This is the guy who I thought was one of the best pitching prospects in the organization. When he came over in 2020, you had, Daniel Espino was around, was the big name, right? Hadn't yet drafted. They did draft Logan Allen at that point in the draft. I'd have to go back and see. Gavin Williams was not there yet in 2020. Tanner Bybee was not there yet. Hunter Gaddis was around at that time. Cade Smith, they signed that previous that offseason. Eli Morgan was still a pitching prospect at that point. Had a lot of guys in the system, honestly. And Tristan McKenzie made his debut in 2020, obviously. All those guys, maybe except for Tristan McKenzie. And I thought Cantillo had a chance to be a left-handed McKenzie. And, their careers have been honestly kind of parallel now that I think about it. Tristan McKenzie went through a lot of health issues in the minors. Joey Cantillo, even this year, he's had an oblique issue, a hamstring issue, a shoulder issue. And he's had performance when he's healthy in the minors, right? And they both had issues with command. And their stuff is also really good and can get major league hitters out. Joey Cantillo, I think, is starting to turn the corner here for that end of 2021, beginning of 2022 range of Tristan McKenzie. You've seen what the Guardians have done the last couple of starts with him, and it happened again against the Twins. They have simplified his pitch mix to fastball, changeup, and it got 11 whiffs between those two pitches. And his fastball, I will tell you, Joey Cantillo's fastball is probably average at best. And it's average because it's from lefties always get a bump, right? So anytime you're a left-handed pitcher, you're always going to get a little bump on grades because lefties are unique and majority of our hitters are left-handed. And the angle is just a little bit weirder because more guys are right-handed. So you're picking up different right-handed, left-handed. Lefties always get a bump. And this bears out in grades for scouting and for stuff plus, all those other metrics, whatever. He throws 92, 94. He averaged 92 on his fastball, which is actually a little bit up for him, but right around average. It's a low spin fastball, but obviously we know Cantillo has great extension, some of the best in baseball. And that's partially due to his delivery, obviously, and just having long arms and long legs. So the fact that he can throw 92 to 94, and with the extension, it's going to look like an effective velocity of about 95 or 96. That helps him play up over a low spin, and it plays up in the zone. So fastball is average. The changeup is easily a plus pitch, which would be a 60 on the 20-80 scouting scale, where 20 is the worst and 80 is like Shohei Ohtani everything. His changeup is legitimately a 60, and that might be in a vacuum, but it's such a good pitch. It's a lot like Hunter Gaddis and Eli Morgan, where those guys really only have two pitches. Now, Gaddis' slider and the bullpen has played up a lot more, and the velocity has helped him there. But Joey Cantillo is doing this as a starter. So 11 whiffs on those two pitches. And what they've done is made his curveball a third offering where he can go to it to get ahead in the count. He can go to it to catch guys off guard. He was throwing fastballs down the middle on 0-2 counts. Guys were frozen by it. They've simplified his approach, and he looks like he's attacking. And he's in the zone a lot. 62% strike rate on the fastball, 56% strike rate on his changeup, 50% on the curveball. They've eliminated the slider almost. That's great. They've simplified the pitch mix. And I think what that sets up for Joey Cantillo, it's great because he can get you through a lineup twice with those three pitches, right? The two pitches once and the curveball he sneaks in there, and it works. It may not work against every team, but it worked against the Twins. I think it can work against most lineups, even at least once. And I think that sets you up for a postseason pitching plan that has to include Joey Cantillo. And the reason it has to include Joey Cantillo is because Tanner Bybee's the guy you're going to ask to go through a lineup twice and hopefully a little bit more. He's the one guy I think you're going to ask of that right now because he is the only guy in this roster that has a pitch mix that can get through a line. I don't even know. 3 times is a lot in the postseason. But Tanner's the only guy I think you can reasonably expect to do that because of his pitch mix. Matthew, and he's been pushed the most. Matthew Boyd, probably 2 times through the order with his stuff and where he's at. Alex Cobb, if he's even healthy, I think 2 times through the order max. And then you got Gavin Williams, who you don't know what you're going to give him any given day. He's got to start this weekend in St. Louis, and I think you need to see the best version of Gavin Williams because he's got one start after this weekend left. You got to see the best version of him. Ben Lively, to me, is a guy I don't want to start in the postseason. I would probably bring him in as a bulk guy, if I'm being honest. Against somebody 7, 8, 9. We can get into that next week when we talk about playoff matchups. Joey Cantillo to me is a guy, is a great bridge guy. Alex Cobb's is throwing a simulated game in Toledo for Columbus this week to see if he's ready to go. If Cobb comes back before the end of the regular season to make a start, I would consider bringing Joey Cantillo. And I'm not Stephen Vogt. I'm not Brad Goldberg. I'm not Carl Willis. I'm just an idiot with a microphone who's talking to you and sitting at my desk. But I think Joey Cantillo has to be on the playoff roster. I don't think you start him in a game unless you're facing a team that is just horrid against lefties. But you need a second lefty in that bullpen. And Joey Cantillo has proven he can go through the order twice at this point. And you don't even need to do that in the playoffs unless it's a dire need, unless someone gets knocked out in the second inning. Joey Cantillo can get you 6 outs in the postseason. Think about this. We talked about this before. Think about Gavin Williams. 6 outs from him, right? 9 outs. I know that's selling low, right? Let's go with Matthew Boyd. Matthew Boyd gets you 12 outs, right? Joey Cantillo can get you 6, maybe behind him, although it's not a lefty. So maybe Alex Cobb. I don't know. I'm just throwing things at the wall here. But you know what I'm saying? Joey Cantillo can get you 6 outs, whether that's the 5th inning or the 6th inning, the 4th inning, whatever it is. And then you go to Heron, to Walters, to Gaddis, to Smith, to Clase. I think Cantillo's got to be a part of this postseason roster. I just don't see a reason not to have him on there. Because right now you can't trust Nick Sandlin. Pedro Avila can be there. You can put Cantillo on the roster with Lively and not leave him off. Here's how I have my pitching lined up. I was putting together some postseason roster looks right here. Carry 13 pitchers, right? So you're carrying Bybee, you're carrying Boyd, you're carrying Cobb, you're carrying Williams, you're carrying Cantillo, you're carrying Lively. That's 6. So that leaves you at the 7-man bullpen or just your 7 normal relief guys. That's 6 starters. And then you have Avila, Morgan, Walters, Heron, Gaddis, Smith, Clase. And this team is going to win with its bullpen. You want Bybee to do his best in game 1 or whatever game you're starting in him. And the rest of the guys, again, 12 outs. Get to the bullpen. And maybe Joey Cantillo's a part of that. I'm just ecstatic about how he's pitched. It's been exciting to watch him as someone who's watched him come through the system and has believed in his stuff. This is the guy I thought he could be. And there's still some work to go with him, but they've simplified things. It's helped his command, and it was the last piece that he needed. And that's not to say that this guarantees anything for the future for him, but right now he's in a good place. And Tristan McKenzie was in a good place at one point too, and it ran off the edge of the earth like a flat earther. But that doesn't mean Cantillo hasn't figured it out either. So we'll see. I think right now he has to be on the postseason roster. I like the idea of him being there. We'll talk about the playoff schedule. We'll talk about the importance of winning in the minors. We'll look at the minor leagues scores and updates from Thursday as well. A lot going on in the minors on Thursday to talk about. We'll look ahead to the Cardinal series as well on the rest of today's show. Stick around. Told you before, guys, you have this weekend. This is it. This is the last chance to take advantage of this great offer from FanDuel. We talk about FanDuel all the time. It's America's #1 sports book. Until September 22nd, that is this Sunday, guys, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. With the YouTube TV base plan, you can watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. So if you're like me, like I always say, I don't follow one team. I follow my fantasy team. Maybe you do yours. Everyone loves their fantasy team. Let's be honest. So nobody cares about it, but you love it. That's all you want to talk about. Or you're a fan of a team not in Ohio or wherever you're living. All you need is a Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel us anytime. Take advantage of those 3 weeks, guys. Just bet $5 on FanDuel. Go on there. Throw something that's easy, very easy. Pick the Guardians to win the ALDS. I don't know. I mean, you might want to do something really quick so you can take advantage of this offer. But $5. All you got to do is bet. Win or lose, you're getting 3 weeks of NFL Sunday Ticket. Watch every game. Enjoy your Sundays. Don't be dragged down by the Browns. Enjoy football, other places, and do it with this great offer. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sports book. 8:15 on Friday. If you are out at a high school football game, if you're doing anything else besides sitting in front of your TV and you want to watch the Guardians or listen to the Guardians, I should say, turn on the Sirius XM app, search Guardians to find the broadcast from St. Louis. That is going to be Ben Lively and Kyle Gibson, some former Twins starters there. Let's look at the playoff schedule very quickly before I get into the importance of winning in the minors. I was looking this up earlier, and I think one of our commenters, I forget who it was, pointed this out about the off days, and I didn't even know about this before. But the first home game, which, by the way, I know is on sale to season ticket holders right now, the first home game is October 5th for the Guardians once they clinch the division. There's an off day on Sunday, October 6th. And then they play game 2 on Monday, the 7th. There's another off day on the 8th. Then you play the 9th and 10th. That's the first time you play back-to-back days, the 9th and the 10th. Game 3 and game 4. Then you got another off day on the 12th. Or the off day on the 11th playing the 12th. So the Guardians in the first round do not have to play more than one set of back-to-back days, which is normal. But you've got 2 off days in there. You've got an off day between game 1 and game 2. You've got an off day between game 4 and 5 if needed. And in the ALCS, you got your game 1 and game 2 are back-to-back. Then you got an off day. That's more traditional. And then game 3 and game 4 are back-to-back. And game 5 is back-to-back. And then you have the off day. So the Guardians will not have to play at one point more than 3 games in a row if they get to the LCS. They won't have to play more than a back-to-back in the first round. And we're just talking about the playoffs. You can really leverage this bullpen with those off days. Cade Smith, who, can go through an order or can go through 3 hitters on like 10, 12 pitches, he can go 2 innings. He can get you 6 outs and throw 20 pitches and have the next day off and be ready to come back. And then your Class A can get you 4 or 5 outs if you really need it. And he's off the next day. Or he can come back the next day, I guess, if you need to. You got to be a little more careful when it's a back-to-back. Hunter Gaddis can throw 10, 12 pitches, have the next day off. You can really lean on these guys in the postseason. There's off days built in there. Guardians just got to score some runs. They got to have some magic. They got to score 4 runs. That is the magic. They only scored 3 on Thursday in the walk-off win against the Twins, which I really didn't get into this, by the way. I haven't gotten into the Kyle Manzardo thing. Love that move of him hitting second. That feels like Stephen Vogt kind of riding the hot hand, which is what we've said to do all year. But you knew at some point they were going to go to a lefty because you have Manzardo and Naylor 2 and 4, right? So and you weren't pinch hitting for Josh Naylor. So you bring in a lefty and you force him out of the game, and you use David Fry, who came through with the base hit, right? Continues to hit left-hander as well. It's a great plan because now you've got 2 hitters or 2 out of 4 in the span there. I know they're going to bring the lefty in for Naylor, but you leverage David Fry at the top of the order ahead of Jose Ramirez, ahead of Josh Naylor, and ahead of Lane Thomas. You get out in front of that switch. So Kyle Manzardo, who also, by the way, has been very patient at the plate lately. He's getting himself into good counts. He had 3 hits, hit the home run, hit the ball hard on Thursday. Take advantage of the hot hand. Get him on top of the order and let him do damage. That I don't know if that's something they're going to keep. They have been searching for the right guy at the number 2 spot all year. I would not mind the rest of the year if Kyle Manzardo hit second against righties and Lane Thomas did it against lefties. I would not mind that at all. Although against lefties, I guess you could put David Fry 5th against lefties. That works out well. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense right there. Would love to see that the rest of the year. Monday, we're going to get into some playoff roster building. I know I talked about the pitching staff, but we're going to get into more of that on Monday. Right now, let's get into a little bit of the importance of winning in the minors and what's going on around the minors, because the Guardians minor league system is having a great week. The Captains clinched their championship on Wednesday, as we talked about on Thursday's show. The Akron Rubber Ducks won on Thursday to force a game 3 in the first round of the Eastern League playoffs. So they're still playing. Columbus clinched a playoff spot this past week too, and they threw a no-hitter on Thursday night to cap all that off. So it has been a heck of a week in the minors for the Guardians. Before we even get into that, let's say too, the no-hitter was Connor Gillespie, Randy LeBeau, Anthony Gose, and Tanner Burns. No Tristan McKenzie, no Logan Allen, no James Karinchak, no Franco Alaman. All guys who just have have served different roles for the Guardians this year as depth or coming up in the majors at different times. So before we get into any of that, too, I also want to point out a friend of the show, Cooper Engel. Congrats to his winning the MVP of the Midwest League for 2024. We had Cooper on earlier this season. If you haven't had a chance to go check that out, it's in our archive somewhere. Check out the interview with Cooper Engel. He is the MVP of the Midwest League in 2024. He was an all-star in 2024 for the Midwest League. So was Angel Hanau, who was an all-star at high A and at low A. Great year for him. Jason Churio was the MVP at low A. Tugboat was an all-star at both levels as well. That's awesome to see. Esteban Gonzalez, I think, was also named the high A all-star. Maybe not. It was player of the week. Maybe I have to go back and look at that. But I'm sorry, Austin Peterson and Parker Messick were also high A all-stars. Parker Messick pitched in that game for Akron. They won on Thursday as well. So all those guys, lots of awards coming in. Akron won 7-4 on Wednesday. Parker Messick pitched really well. Cody Huff had a bunch of RBIs. I know in that game, the guy people have not really had the best things to say in our comments or on Twitter, but he has had an interesting season for sure. I think he's going to play in the Arizona Fall League. I'm pretty sure. But he's had a heck of a year. Cooper Engel's had a heck of a year, both levels as well. And yeah, Columbus, they threw a no-hitter on Thursday as well. So congrats to those guys. That's always fun. Let's talk real quick about the importance of winning the minors, because they were saying on the broadcast about how important that is to develop a winning culture. And that's definitely true. I don't doubt that at all. I've seen it. And you definitely want guys who want to play for each other. I think that's what it really is, right? It's not the championships themselves or playoff wins themselves in the minors. What it is these guys coming together as a team with their teammates and playing for each other, because that's what you want at the major league level. You want a good clubhouse. You see all these guys. Stephen Vogt was tearing up the other day in a press conference after Kyle Manzardo or whoever it was had the walk-off, right? Or he had to have the 8th inning home run. He was tearing up about that win. You want guys in the locker room who care for each other, because it's good for clubhouse chemistry. Teams that have good clubhouses wins. Now, you do have the inverse, right? You have the 95 Indians who were, I don't say they're volatile. I think they liked each other, but there was a lot of personalities there. There are definitely clubhouses that hate each other and have won in the past for sure. But a cohesive clubhouse is really good. I mean, look at that group from 2013 to 2018. You had, Andrew Miller and Kluber and Brantley and Chisenhall and Kipnis. All those guys really liked each other. Josh Tomlin, and they were hanging out in the off season and all that stuff, and they still do hang out. And that's just a product of spending a lot of time together too. But it helps to be able to want to play for the guy next to you, to do something for them, to be better for them, and care about each other, and know that the guy next to you is working just as hard as you are to win, and know that they care, and getting to know that person. As far as the actual championship aspect of the minors, the winning, we talked yesterday on Thursday's show about the 2010 captains who won the championship. I mean, Danny Salazar again was there for a minute. Outside of that, it was, a lot of guys who never really made it that were big name prospects. Actually, we talked about Jason Knapp. Owen Dew was on that roster. I think is still coaching in the system. So shout out to Owen Dew, who's I think in AAA at this point, the pitching coach. Trey Haley was a top prospect at one time. He was on that roster, never made it. Roberto Perez was arguably the most successful player on that roster. Outside of Danny Salazar, who was only there for a little bit that season. That team did not have a lot of top prospects on it. It didn't at all. Like Delvey Sid was a top prospect at one time. Bo Greenwell was highly thought of. Tyler Holt made a good career for a little bit. There just weren't a lot of big names on that roster. And I went back even further. And I looked at Akron, because Akron won a title in 2012. Cody Allen was there, long enough to stay at a Holiday Inn, and that was about it. And the rest of that roster, like you had guys that just, you had Hector Rondon, who had a nice career as a reliever for a little bit, but he was there for a couple of innings. He was hurt. Sean Armstrong was there for a lot. He's had a good career as a reliever. Paulo Espino, who's still pitching in pro baseball, was a big guy in that roster. But again, that roster also had Trey Haley, who was a top prospect, and Rob Bryson was a big prospect who never made it. Tim Fedorov was a high pick who never made it, was on that roster. Nick Weglars, if you're a prospect guy from way back like I am, Nick Weglars, Jesus Aguilar, all on that roster. Aguilar had a good season, had a good career too. 2021, I will say, a little bit different for Akron. So on the flip side of things, that team was really special. You had Bo Naylor, Richie Palacio, Stephen Kwan, Oscar Gonzalez, Brian Rocchio, Tyler Freeman, Will Brennan. All those guys have gone on to be big leaguers, which is a heck of a lot more than the other teams I was just naming. Daniel Sheen was on that roster. So those guys were there. Joey Cantillo was part of that roster for just a little bit. He was hurt that year. Logan Allen was there most of that season. Xavier Curry was there for a little bit at that point. Cody Morris was part of that roster, who was a big prospect, obviously, for us. So that roster did have a few more guys. So it can vary at times. I also looked at Columbus as well. Actually, I'm trying to look at the 2016 Akron roster now. If this will ever load for me. 2016, they also won a championship. That 2016 team, part of the year featured Clint Frazier and Bradley Zimmer, but it also had Yandy Diaz and Greg Allen, who Yandy Diaz had a great career. A lot of guys in that team, JP Fireson, who was traded for Andrew Miller as well, was on that team. Cole Sulser, who we just saw last week with the Rays, was on that roster. Not a great roster. Honestly, it was okay. It was a couple of guys. So, looking at who they're going to send to the majors, and I'm not looking at AAA, even though the Clippers have won championships as recently as 2021, because those guys are close to the majors at that point, or they're holdovers from the major league roster. 2019, they won that championship. I'm not looking at those rosters, but the main point here is I think when you got guys like Will Brennan and Stephen Kwan and Brian Rocchio and Tanner Bybee, Kyle Manzardo, all these guys that have come through the system together, they become teammates, they become friends, they pull for each other, they push each other to work harder and get better. And you just know the guy next to you, I think, is working towards the same goal. You trust each other to put the effort in to win. So you're not showing up any given day doing whatever it takes to win. And this guy's showing up. And Cleveland's really good about performance is one thing. Work ethic sometimes doesn't always equate to performance, unfortunately. But the guy is not shortchanging you in the locker next to you, and that's important. So I think that's the aspect that you look at in the minors, where the actual winning the championship doesn't matter, but it does matter to them. But I think it's the ability for these guys to develop that camaraderie that goes along with winning, and the work that takes to get there. Real quickly, too, if you haven't had a chance to listen, go read the story in The Athletic of the White Sox. I'm not going to share the quotes on here. If I had time, I was going to get to it, but go on The Athletic and read that story. The White Sox system is the exact opposite of Cleveland's. It is horrendous. It's sad. I feel bad for White Sox fans. I feel bad for the players in that organization, too, because it's just a mess and how it got here. Hey, guys, the next time we talk, the Guardians might be division champions. Next time we are doing a show, Guardians can win the championship. We'll be back on Monday. Hopefully, we'll be popping more bottles on Monday for another celebration. Maybe Akron, maybe the Guardians as well for a division title. This week, we're going to also revisit our 2024 prospect draft, see who had the best team. I don't think either of us did very well, if I'm being honest. And then we're going to start looking at playoff matchups, because once the Guardians clinch this thing, it's going to come down to who are they going to play in the ALDS. We'll talk about advanced scouting, what goes into that, and we'll take a look at some numbers and some data as well to see what Cleveland could be up against when it comes to the ALDS. Enjoy your weekend. Hope the Guardians clinch this weekend. They'll be back at home on Tuesday. This is the first time, by the way, since 2018, the Guardians have clinched a playoff spot in front of home fans. It'd be great to wrap it up as soon as possible. It might be great to also do it on Tuesday night in front of Guardians fans as well. You've all been great as well. Appreciate you guys all for tuning in. Remember to rate and review, download. We haven't had a review in a while. Appreciate one of those. Thank you all. Go, Guardians, go. Pop that champagne.